Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're going to be making a tic-tac-toe set. Well, here we are on another Alternative Tuesdays, and I'm playing with the ABS again, guys. I don't know what it is. This stuff is addictive, and I keep coming up with other ideas and other little projects to make from it, and that's why the ABS segment of Alternative Tuesdays continues. Today, it's a portable or a small little tic-tac-toe set, and what we're going to start off with is making the board. I'm starting off with this green ABS, and I love the color. It just kind of reminds me of that billiard table felt, and that's kind of why I chose this for the color for the base or for the board. So for this, we're going to cut some 1/4 inch thick strips off of this block, and then from there we're going to cut 9 individual pieces for the board itself. Well, the main pieces of the board are cut, and what I ended up with is 9 pieces that are 1/4 inch thick, and they're also 1 1/16 of an inch square. We now need some black ABS, and we need some strips of that will be 1/16 of an inch thick. I've cut some strips of the ABS that are 1/16 of an inch thick, and as well I've made them 5/16 wide, which makes them stick up 1/16 of an inch above our green base. So you kind of get the idea, hopefully, of what I'm going to be doing here, and that is I will be cutting these pieces to length so that they fit perfectly here in between these pieces. I will also be cutting individual pieces to go in between each one of these sections, and what we should end up with when we're completely done everything is we should end up with a nice grid for our playing surface. And there we have those pieces cut, and the last piece here that we need to cut for the board, or the last pieces, is we want a perimeter around the outside, and I'm thinking that too will be black. So it's just a matter of lining it up and cutting our pieces there for the outside border of our game board. Well, if you were following along, you should have something that looks like this. And we don't have anything glued together at this point in time, and that is just fine with me, as there's still something that we need to do. And what we need to do is in the back of each one of these green squares, we are going to drill a 1/2 inch diameter hole that will be, a little more than 1/8 of an inch deep. So just a little more than halfway through here, we want to drill a 1/2 inch diameter hole. I have a depth stop in place, and I have a stop block on the right side here to line it up, and as well the fence on the drill press table in order to make sure that everything lines up as I drill these 1/2 inch holes in each one of the pieces. It's now time to glue the board together, and for that we're going to use some CA glue, and you just need a little drop. Now we've done a dry fit here. We have a square in place that's going to help us align everything and make sure that everything goes together nice and squarely. And bit by bit, we're just going to take our time and we're going to glue these pieces together so that they form the board that you see here. Now chances are, if you're anything like me and you glued this together, you also glued it to your board. And that's no big deal, just a little bit of a thin blade underneath, and you should just be able to wiggle that through. There you go, and just pop it right off. Now there will be a little bits of the MDF on the back, and that's nothing that a sharp blade can't take care of just to get rid of it. I'll probably use a chisel just to skim that off. The next thing that we want to do is, now that we have this board put together, we want to use these 1/2-inch holes that we drilled, and we're going to glue in a 1/2-inch rare earth magnet into each one of these recesses. There we go. We've got the back all cleaned up now. And just with a little drop of CA glue in each one, we can get those magnets put in place. And that, my friends, is the board completed. So we're going to put this off to the side now, and we want to work on the pieces. And for the pieces of this tic-tac-toe game, we're going to need some white squares. And the squares are going to be 1-inch square and 1/4 of an inch thick. We're going to need 10 of those. And there we have actually 11 pieces of these are our playing tiles, I guess we would call them. And again, just to reiterate the measurement, 1/4 of an inch thick by 1 inch by 1 inch. And now we need to mark them for the X's and the O's. And I kind of thought it would be a fun idea if we cut some red stock and possibly some blue stock to be 1/16 of an inch thick. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut out the X's and the O's on the scroll saw. But for that, we need a pattern. Well, the pattern for this could not be simpler. I've just gone in on the computer and printed out 5, these are actually plus signs, but that works, and a lowercase o, and I've adjusted the font size to match my playing squares to make sure the pattern will fit. All I'm going to do is use some spray adhesive on the back of these patterns. I'm going to apply them to a 1/16 of an inch thick strip of both red and blue. I'm thinking that the X's will be red and the O's will be blue. And then we're going to take them over to the scroll saw and cut them out. And with the 3-minute timer done, we're just going to lay these down on the colors that we want them cut out of. Rub them down, and then we're going to head over to the scroll saw. We need to clean up these pieces. There's a little bit of burring that's happening on them. And for that, we're just going to get a little X-Acto knife like this. And we're not actually cutting it. We're kind of scraping it. And that scraping is just enough to get all of those little burrs off of your piece and get it all nice and clean and give it sharp edges. So clean up all of the edges, and then there's one more thing to do to our game piece before we can glue our shapes on. You're also going to want to remove your patterns from these pieces and clean up any residue of the glue with a little bit of mineral spirits. Well, before we can glue on our X's and our O's here, we haven't really made much mention of these rare earth magnets. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a 1/4 inch flat washer and embed it into the bottom of each one of these pieces. That way the pieces will stick to our board. And as long as they'll stick to our board, then when the kids are playing this in the back seat on your little travels, they're not going to spill the pieces all over the vehicle. Now, they're not extremely strong magnets, but they are enough to hold it in place. So we're going to head over to the drill press and put a little bit of a divot with a 3/4 inch Forstner bit into each one of these blocks, and we're going to use some CA glue to glue in these 1/4 inch magnet or 1/4 inch washers. And now that you have your recesses drilled in all of your playing pieces, you just want to check the fit to make sure that your washer sits flush and that it fits into that hole. And once you get that in there, then we're going to take a little bit of CA glue and again use that to adhere these washers inside these playing pieces. And once you have all of your edges tidied up and all the burrs removed on these scrolled pieces, we can put a little bit of CA glue on each one, just a little bit, and line them up in our piece and just glue them in place, just like that. And there we have an X. And of course, if you lay it in the game board, it holds in place just like that. And that's just spectacular, I would say. So let's get 5 X's glued on and 5 O's. And then, well, you know what? I'll come back and see you when I'm done. Okay, now seriously now, who wouldn't dig this? This is awesome. Guys, I don't know, is there anybody out there who doesn't know how to play this game? Well, if there is, I'm going to explain it to you in a nutshell. It's basically a 2-player game in which you take turns. One player takes the X's, the other player takes the O's. And you take turns playing, with one player playing first, wherever they see fit, then the next player will play. And the object of the game here is for one of the players to be able to get 3 of theirs in a row. And you carry on until you get 3 in a row. And if you're lucky enough to be able to do that, well, then you win the game. And of course, the best part about this is as you're playing in the car, like I said, look at that. That's awesome. It all stays in place. And when you're packing it away, when you're done playing it, you can put all your pieces there. You will have one left over, and that's okay because you can snap that right on the back. And there you have it. A tic-tac-toe magnetic game made from ABS plastics. Guys, this project was a heck of a lot of fun and relatively easy. It wasn't even that time consuming, considering that I had the idea in my head with no formal plans written down. I just kind of flew by the seat of my pants. I was able to put this one together in a couple of hours, which for a fly by the seat of your pants build is actually pretty good. So if you had a couple hours to kill in the afternoon, this may be a project that you may want to consider, especially if you do any kind of traveling, say to the cottage or to relatives that are out of town and that sort of thing, and you have young ones and want to be able to keep them occupied. This is a great way to do it. Guys, I hope you're going to try this project for yourself. I mean, all of these materials are all readily available through Omicron Plastics. As well, if you didn't want to go the plastic route, as always on my show, there's always the route of using wood with contrasting species and that sort of thing to make your pieces. The process of building it and cutting it, etc., is exactly the same. There is no difference here. And hopefully, whether it be in plastic or wood or or whatever other medium you choose, I hope that you're going to try this project because it is worthwhile as far as trying it goes. Guys, I want to thank you for tuning in this week. I've had a heck of a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed the program as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. And I hope you're going to join me again for another Alternative Tuesdays.